"The Council has granted you temporary asylum," Talia announced, as she entered Evan's quarters 3 days later. Her silver-white hair was now braided intricately around her head, accentuating the elegant lines of her face. Kira followed close behind, carrying a tray of crystalline containers. "We've been assigned as your cultural liaisons," she added with a smile that seemed to brighten the already luminous room. Evan had spent the intervening days exploring his quarters and learning about Navieri culture through the interactive holograms provided. His room, though comfortable, was clearly designed for observation, a fact that hadn't escaped his military-trained mind. "So I'm not a prisoner?" he asked, accepting a glass of shimmering violet liquid from Kira. Their fingers brushed, and he felt that now familiar warmth spread up his arm. "Not exactly," Talia said, settling gracefully onto a curved bench. "You're a diplomatic complexity." Kira sat beside her sister, their shoulders touching. "The Council fears what might happen if your people discover our existence. Your species has a history of confrontational first contacts." Evan sipped the beverage. It tasted like honeyed starlight, if such a thing were possible. Considered his position. "And what do you two think?" The twins exchanged another of their silent glances. Evan had noticed how they often communicated without words, their expressions shifting in perfect synchrony. "We find you intriguing," Talia finally said, her opal eyes studying him with that intense curiosity that made his skin warm. "Most Navieri twins share all experiences," Kira explained, her voice softer than her sister's. "We feel what the other feels, know what the other knows. But you, ... she hesitated. "Create different feelings in each of us," Talia finished. "It's unprecedented." Evan set down his glass. "Is that why you both watch me when you think I'm sleeping?" Kira's purple skin darkened in a blush, but Talia met his gaze unflinchingly. "Yes, you dream vividly. The emotions you emit are ... powerful. We're empaths, remember?" Kira added. "Your dreams call to us." The implications of that statement hung in the air between them. Evan wondered just how much of his subconscious they had accessed his, whether they had sensed his growing attraction to both of them. "I'd like to see more of your ship," he said, changing the subject. "If I'm not a prisoner." The twins rose in perfect unison. "We can show you the observation deck," Kira offered. "It's beautiful when we're in quantum fold." As they guided him through the flowing corridors of the celestial harmony, Evan noticed how other Navieri varying. Shades of purple, but none with the luminescent quality of the twins regarded them with a mixture of respect and wariness. "Jure. People don't seem entirely comfortable." "With you two?" he observed quietly. Talia's mouth curved in a slight smile. "Twin empaths are rare among our kind. Our connection is stronger than most. We feel more deeply," Kira added. "Both joy and pain." The observation deck was a vast dome of transparent material that offered an unobstructed view of what appeared to be liquid starlight flowing around the ship. The quantum fold. Evan realized a dimension between dimensions where normal physics surrendered to something more fluid and dreamlike. "It's beautiful," he breathed, reaching out as if he could touch the streams of light. "Like nothing in your experience," Talia agreed, moving to stand beside him. Her presence radiated a controlled intensity that contrasted with Kira's gentler energy. "We emerge in 12 hours, Kira said, joining them to form a triangle. "Then we reach Navaris." "Your homeworld," Evan murmured, watching how the quantum light played across their purple skin, turning them into living sculptures of twilight and silver. "Yes," Talia said. "The Council will evaluate you there, if they decide I'm a threat." The sisters exchanged another meaningful glance before Kira spoke. "Then your memory of us would be adjusted before your return to Earth." The casual mention of mental manipulation sent a chill through Evan. "And if I resist?" Talia stepped closer, her eyes holding his. "You wouldn't. Not against both of us." There was no threat in her voice, only fact. Evan suddenly understood the power that hummed beneath their beautiful exterior. These weren't just aliens with empathic abilities. They were capable of overriding his very will. "You've done it before," he realized aloud. "Two others like me, never together," Kira said softly. "But yes, separately when necessary." An uncomfortable silence descended until Talia broke it. We should return. You need rest before we arrive. As they walked back, Evan became acutely aware of how the twins positioned themselves on either side of him, just as they had when he first awoke. Their movements were perfectly synchronized. Yet he increasingly sensed the distinct individual beneath each identical exterior. That night, as he lay in the darkness of his quarters, Evan felt the now familiar presence of the twins at the edge of his consciousness, watching, feeling, perhaps even guiding his thoughts. But instead of the invasion of privacy it should have been, he found himself reaching back, curious about the bond that tied them together, and somewhere in that mental touch, he felt something unexpected, a loneliness within each sister that mirrored his own, and a hunger for connection that transcended species. In that moment, despite the uncertainty of his future, Evan knew that the real danger wasn't what the Navieri Council might do to him. It was what he was beginning to feel for the twin sisters who held his fate in their hands. Evan Mercer's consciousness returned like a tide washing over jagged rocks, painful, disorienting, and relentless. The last thing he remembered was the warning klaxon of his exploration vessel as it spiraled toward an uncharted asteroid field in the Cygnus sector. Now, as his eyes fluttered open, he found himself staring at an iridescent ceiling that pulsed with soft, amber light. "He's awake," whispered a melodic voice to his left. "His vitals are stabilizing," responded an identical voice from his right. Evan tried to sit up, but found his limbs heavy and uncooperative. Turning his head, he discovered the source of the voices and, his breath caught in his throat. On either side of him were two identical women with delicate features, almond-shaped eyes that shimmered like opals, and skin the color of twilight, a soft, luminous purple that seemed to glow from within. "Where am I?" Evan managed, his voice rough from disuse. The twin on his left leaned closer, her silver-white hair falling forward in a curtain. "You're aboard the Celestial Harmony, a Navieri exploration vessel. I'm Talia." "And I'm Kira," said her sister, placing a cool hand on his forehead. "You've been unconscious for 3 lunar cycles since we rescued your ship." Evan closed his eyes, processing. 3 lunar cycles, nearly a month by Earth standards. His mission to map the outer reaches of the Cygnus sector had clearly gone sideways. "Your vessel was critically damaged," Talia explained, helping him sit up. "We were able to extract you before it was destroyed, but your communication array was beyond salvage." "The Navieri, never heard of your species," Evan said, studying their identical features. The twins wore fitted silver garments that shimmered like liquid metal. Complementing their purple skin, Kira smiled, revealing pearlescent teeth. "We keep to ourselves. Our homeworld, Navaris, orbits a binary star system beyond your mapped territories. We are empaths by nature. We sense emotions and can share thoughts through touch, which is how we knew you were in distress," Talia added. "Your fear resonated across space. It drew us to you." Evan noticed subtle differences between them now. Talia's eyes held a sharper intensity, while Kira's expression carried a gentler curiosity. Both watched him with undisguised fascination. Why was I Evan hesitated, realizing with sudden embarrassment that he had been lying between them on what appeared to be a recovery bed. "Our healing process requires energy transfer," Kira explained, her cheeks darkening to a deeper purple. "Navieri twins like us can create a balanced healing field. You needed to be positioned between us." "Your physiology is fascinating," Talia said, her gaze traveling over him with scientific interest. "We've encountered few humans before." Evan attempted to stand, and the twins moved in perfect synchrony to assist him. Their touch sent a strange warmth through his body. Not unpleasant, but unsettling in its intimacy. "You should rest more," Kira insisted, her hand lingering on his arm. "Your body is still adapting to our atmosphere." The chamber around them was spacious and curved, the walls that seemed to breathe and shimmer with the same ambient light as the ceiling. Through a large viewport, Evan could see unfamiliar constellations against the velvet backdrop of space. "I need to contact Earth Command," he said. "They'll be searching for me." Talia and Kira exchanged a glance that seemed to carry an entire conversation. "We're currently traveling through what you would call a quantum fold," Talia finally said, Communication isn't possible until we emerge. When will that be? Evan asked, noticing how the twins' expressions mirrored each other in concern. That depends on the council's decision, Kira replied softly. You see, we weren't authorized to rescue you. By bringing a human aboard, we've broken our highest law of non-interference. What does that mean for me? Evan asked, a chill spreading through him despite the warmth of the room. Talia's voice was solemn. It means your fate and ours now lies in the hands of those who have long considered humans too dangerous to contact. As the implications settled over him, Evan realized that waking up between alien twins was only the beginning of his troubles. Nevaris was a world of perpetual twilight. Orbiting twin suns that never fully rose nor set, but instead painted the horizon in eternal shades of lavender and gold. The capital city Lumeris spread across a vast plateau like a collection of liquid silver droplets, buildings that seemed to flow rather than stand, connected by arching bridges that shimmered in the dusky light. It's incredible, Evan whispered, as their shuttle descended toward a crystalline landing platform. After a week in the company of the twins, he had grown accustomed to their presence at his side. The subtle differences between them now, as obvious to him as they were invisible to others. Home, Kira said simply, her expression softening as she gazed at the city below. For now, Talia added cryptically, her fingers tapping a restless pattern on the viewport. The council chamber was a perfect circle of polished obsidian, ringed by 7 tall chairs occupied by elders whose purple skin had faded to a pale lilac with age. Their silver hair hung in elaborate braids signifying their rank and lineage. At the center stood a platform where Evan now waited, flanked by Talia and Kira. Extraordinary, murmured the chief elder, a female named Vireless, whose eyes held the wisdom of centuries. A human who exhibits no fear in our presence, he feels. Other things, commented another elder, his gaze moving between Evan and the twins with undisguised suspicion. Evan remained silent. Understanding that much of the real communication was happening on an empathic level he couldn't access. The twins had coached him on protocol during their journey speak, only when addressed directly, reveal nothing of Earth's defense capabilities, and above all, control his emotions. That last part proved most difficult, especially when he felt Kira's hand brush against his, a gesture of reassurance that sent warmth cascading through his body. The human will remain under observation, Vireless finally declared. The twins, Talia and Kira, will continue as his liaisons and guards. His knowledge of our existence will be evaluated after 1 full cycle of our moons. As they left the chamber, Evan sensed the tension radiating from Talia. That wasn't the full council, she said quietly once they were alone in a transport pod. 3 elders were missing. Is that significant? Evan asked. Kira nodded, her expression troubled. The council must be unanimous in decisions involving other species. Something's happening, Talia said, pacing the small confines of the pod. Something they didn't want us to sense. Their concerns were temporarily pushed aside as they arrived at a residential dome near the city's edge. Inside, a spacious dwelling awaited them, clearly designed for the twins, with a smaller adjoining chamber hastily prepared for Evan. Home sweet home, Kira said with a forced lightness. We haven't been back in nearly 2 stellar cycles, not since our parents joined the deep exploration fleet, Talia added. Moving to a console that sprang to life at her touch, Evan watched them move through the space, noticing how they gravitated toward opposite ends of the dwelling yet remained somehow connected. Like binary stars locked in eternal orbit. You don't have to pretend with me, he said finally. Something about that council meeting has you both worried? The twins exchanged one of their silent communications before Talia sighed. The missing elders are reformists. They advocate for open contact with other species, especially humans. Their absence isn't coincidental, Kira continued. Not when you're being evaluated. Evan processed this. You think they're being silenced? Or worse, Talia said grimly. The traditionalists have always feared human unpredictability. Your emotional capacity is unnerving to those who can feel it. It's like feeling a storm approaching, Kira explained. Moving closer to Evan, beautiful but potentially devastating. Later that night, as Evan lay in his new bed listening to the strange harmonics of an alien city, he heard the soft slide of his door opening. Kira entered, her silver sleeping robe catching the ambient light from the window. "I couldn't sleep," she said simply, sitting at the edge of his bed. "Your emotions are loud tonight," sorry, Evan said, sitting up. "It's been an overwhelming day," she smiled. "Don't apologize. Your honesty is refreshing. Most Navieri guard their feelings carefully. Even from their twins? Especially from their twins, sometimes."
Ah!
Her voice held a note of sadness. "Talia and I. We're closer than most, but even we have secrets." The confession hung between them like a tangible thing. Evan found himself reaching for her hand, an instinctive gesture of comfort that turned electric when their skin connected. Kira's eyes widened, the opalescent irises dilating. "Shouldn't," she began, but didn't pull away. "What am I feeling right now?" Evan asked quietly. Kira's breath caught. Desire, confusion, concern. Her voice dropped to a whisper. "The same things I'm feeling." The moment stretched between them, taut with possibility. Then, from the doorway, "And the same things I'm feeling, watching you both." Talia stood there, her expression unreadable in the dim light. But Evan could feel the complex emotions radiating from her. Jealousy and longing intertwined so closely they became indistinguishable. Talia, Kira began. Guilt, coloring her voice. "Don't," her sister said, entering the room fully. "We agreed to be honest with him. And with each other." She moved to stand before them, her presence commanding, even in her sleeping attire. "The council is fractured. War is coming. Civil war. And you, Evan, are either the catalyst or the cure." "What does that mean?" Evan asked, still acutely aware of Kira's hand in his. Talia's eyes glittered in the darkness. "It means we have enemies who would use our growing connection to you against us. It means we must be very careful about what we feel." Her gaze dropped to their joined hands. "And what we do about those feelings." As the implications of her words settled over them, a distant alarm began to sound, shattering the intimate tension of the moment. "Security breach," the twins said in perfect unison, their expressions shifting to alert concern. Before Evan could respond, the window exploded inward in a shower of crystalline shards, and the night erupted into chaos. The attack came with surgical precision, three hooded figures wielding energy weapons that emitted pulses of concentrated sound rather than light. Evan reacted instinctively, pulling Kira to the floor as Talia dove for the security panel near the door. "To stay down," Talia shouted, her fingers dancing across the controls. A translucent barrier shimmered into existence, separating them from the intruders. "It won't hold," Kira warned, her voice tight with fear. "Those are military-grade disruptors." Evan surveyed the room, his military training taking over. "Is there another way out?" The twins nodded in unison. "The meditation chamber," Kira said, pointing to a seemingly solid wall. "It connects to the emergency tunnels." As they scrambled toward it, the barrier flickered and failed. The first intruder stepped through, raising their weapon. Evan lunged forward, catching them by surprise with a tackle that sent them both crashing to the floor. They grappled briefly before Evan managed to wrench the weapon free. "Evan," Talia called, her voice strained. She had activated the hidden door, but was now facing off against another attacker. The third intruder had Kira cornered, weapon leveled at her chest. Without hesitation, Evan fired the captured disruptor, sending the assailant crumpling to the ground. Kira's eyes widened, both in gratitude and shock at his decisive action. "Move now," Evan ordered, helping Talia dispatch her opponent with a precise strike to their neck. Vulnerable point she somehow knew to target despite never having fought a Navieri before. They fled into the tunnels, dim bioluminescent panels lighting their way through the winding passages beneath Lumaris. When they finally emerged in what appeared to be an abandoned storage facility, all three were breathing hard. "Who were they?" Evan demanded. "Separatists," Talia said grimly, checking a wound on her arm where an energy pulse had grazed her purple skin. "Extremists who believe our society should remain isolated from all other species." Kira moved to her sister, placing her hand over the injury. A soft glow emanated from their connected skin as she channeled healing energy. They must have learned about you from someone on the council. We need to go to Viralus, Talia insisted. She'll protect us. Kira shook her head, still tending to her sister's wound. We can't trust anyone on the council right now. Not until we know who ordered this attack. Evan watched their interaction with growing awareness. Something had changed between the twins, a subtle tension that hadn't been there before. Their usual perfect synchronicity was fractured. What? There's a safe location, Kira suggested after a moment. The old observatory at the edge of the Whisper Forest. It's been abandoned since the last stellar alignment. Talia nodded reluctantly. No one would think to look for us there. They traveled in tense silence, using a series of public transport nodes to avoid detection, finally hiking the last stretch through a grove of trees that seemed to sing softly as they passed, their silver leaves vibrating in the perpetual twilight. The observatory was a dome of weathered metal and crystal, nestled in a clearing. Inside, dusty equipment lay dormant. But the structure was sound and offered a clear view of the surrounding forest in all directions. We should be safe here for a while, Talia said, activating the ancient systems. Soft light bloomed throughout the space, revealing a circular main room with several smaller chambers branching off. I'll check the perimeter, Evan offered, needing a moment alone to process the night's events. Outside. Beneath the lavender sky, he tried to make sense of everything. The attack, the conspiracy among the council, and most confusingly, his growing feelings for both sisters. It wasn't just physical attraction, though, that was undeniably present, but something deeper. A connection that transcended the barriers between their species. He was so lost in thought that he didn't hear Kira approach until she spoke. Your mind is turbulent, she said softly, standing beside him. I can feel it even without trying. Evan turned to face her. I'm not used to being so ... exposed. Does it bother you? There was vulnerability in her question. Less than it should, he admitted. With you, at least. Kira's eyes softened. Talia feels your emotions too, you know, but she processes them differently. She hesitated. We've never experienced this before, being drawn to someone separately rather than as a unit. Is that what's happening? You're being drawn to me? Instead of answering, Kira stepped closer and placed her hand on his chest, just over his heart. The contact sent waves of warmth through his body, but this time it was accompanied by flashes of his own face seen through her eyes. Feelings of fascination and desire that weren't his but hers, projected into his mind. Kira, he breathed. Understanding now the depth of what she was sharing, she leaned forward, and their lips met in a kiss that was both alien and achingly familiar. The empathic connection deepened, emotions flowing between them like electricity wonder, desire, tenderness, and beneath it all, a growing fear of what this meant for her bond with Talia. When they finally parted, Evan saw Talia standing in the observatory doorway. Her expression a complex mixture of hurt and longing. Talia, Kira began, guilt evident in her voice. Don't, her sister said, raising a hand. I felt it all anyway. She stepped forward, her movements fluid yet restrained. That's what terrifies me, Kira. For the first time, I felt your emotions, but didn't share them. You were separate from me. The implications hung heavy in the air. For twins who had never experienced emotional independence, this was profound and frightening. I don't know what's happening to us, Kira admitted. Reaching for her sister's hand, Talia accepted the contact but kept her eyes on Evan. He's changing us, changing our bond. I never meant to, Evan started, but Talia cut him off. Tensions are irrelevant. The change is happening regardless. Her voice softened. And the most disturbing part is that I'm not sure I want it to stop. The three of them stood in a triangle of tension and possibility. The twin moons of Navaris rising above the forest canopy, casting dual shadows that merged and separated as clouds passed. Their fragile moment of understanding was shattered by a distant rumble that shook the ground beneath their feet. What was that? Evan asked, instinctively moving closer to the twins. Talia's expression darkened. It came from the direction of Lumeris. She activated a small device on her wrist. projecting a holographic news feed into the air between them. The image showed chaos in the Capitol buildings aflame, citizens fleeing, and at the center of it all, the council chamber collapsed in on itself. "It's begun," Kira whispered, horror in her voice. "Civil war." "The separatists are making their move," Talia agreed grimly. "And they're starting by eliminating anyone who might oppose them." Evan watched the destruction unfold, understanding with sudden clarity that his presence had indeed been the catalyst, not the cause, but the excuse needed to ignite long-simmering tensions within Naveri society. "We need to find Viralus," he said decisively. "If she survived, she's our best hope for stopping this." The twins nodded in agreement. Their earlier emotional conflict temporarily set aside in the face of the greater threat, as they prepared to return to the city. Evan caught Talia watching him with an intensity that mirrored her sister's earlier regard. Whatever was happening between the three of them would have to wait, but as they set out toward the burning city, he couldn't shake the feeling that their personal entanglement and the fate of Navarus were somehow intertwined, that the solution to one might well be the key to resolving the other. Lumeris burned beneath the perpetual twilight. Sections of the once beautiful city now reduced to smoldering silver puddles as buildings, melted under concentrated energy attacks. The three of them observed from a ridge overlooking the capital. Having abandoned their initial plan to enter directly, the separatists control the main arteries, Talia said, lowering a pair of enhancement lenses. They've established checkpoints at every entry point. Kira closed her eyes, extending her empathic senses. "So much fear and anger," she murmured. "It's overwhelming." Evan studied the tactical situation with a soldier's eye. "We need to find out if Viralus survived. Do you have any way to contact her securely?" The twins exchanged a glance that held an entire conversation. Finally, Talia nodded. "There's an old communication system, established before modern networks. It uses quantum entanglement between specific locations. And one terminal is near here," Kira added. In the ancestral archives, they made their way through the whisper forest, the singing leaves masking the sound of their passage. The archives turned out to be a modest structure built into the side of a hill, its entrance hidden behind a curtain of bioluminescent vines. Inside, the air was cool and still, filled with the subtle scent of preserved knowledge data, crystals, and ancient written records, stored in climatically controlled chambers. Talia led them to a small room at the back, where a simple console stood, its design markedly different from the flowing aesthetics of modern Naveari technology. "This dates back to the First Contact era," she explained, activating the system with a complex series of gestures. "Before we retreated from the galactic community, you were once more open to other species?" Evan asked. Surprised, Kira nodded. "Centuries ago, before the great deception that led to our isolation." Before Evan could ask more, the console hummed to life, projecting a holographic interface. Talia entered a series of commands, then waited tensely. After what seemed an eternity, the projection shifted, revealing the face of Elder Viralus, wary, but very much alive. "I had hoped you would remember the old ways," the Elder said without preamble. "The situation is dire. The Separatists control most of the city, but they don't yet have a complete victory." "What happened?" Talia demanded. "Treachery from within." Elder Nemes revealed himself as the Separatist leader and detonated explosives during an emergency session. Viralus's expression grew grim. "For council members are dead? Those of us who survived are scattered, organizing resistance. What can we do?" Kira asked. Viralus's eyes shifted to Evan. "Your human companion is central to this conflict, not as he is, but as a symbol of what he represents, reconnection with the wider universe. The great deception," Evan said. Remembering Kira's words, as Viralus confirmed. "The lie that all other species seek to dominate or destroy us, a falsehood that has kept our society isolated for generations. What do you need from us?" Evan asked, recognizing that he had been drawn into a conflict far larger than his personal situation. "The ancestral beacon," Viralus said. "It remains in the Temple of Communion, beneath the council chamber. If activated, it It will broadcast a signal to all Navieri, everywhere, a message that cannot be blocked or altered. What message? Talia asked suspiciously. The truth, Virulus replied simply. Records from before the isolation. Proof that our fears were manufactured by those who sought to control our society through isolation. The plan was dangerous but clear. Infiltrate the occupied city, reach the underground temple, and activate the beacon. As they prepared to leave the archives, Evan pulled the twins aside. Before we do this, we need to address what's happening between us, he said directly. Your bond with each other is being affected, and that could be dangerous in combat. The sisters looked at each other, a flash of pain crossing their identical features. Our connection is changing, Kira admitted. Not breaking, but transforming into something we don't fully understand. Because of me, Evan said. It wasn't a question, Talia nodded. We've never experienced separate emotional responses to the same person before. It's disorienting. It's like having one heart trying to beat two different rhythms, Kira added. Evan took a deep breath. I care for both of you, he said simply. In different ways, but with equal intensity. I don't want to come between you. Perhaps that's not what's happening at all, Talia said thoughtfully. Perhaps instead of coming between us, you're creating a new type of bond, a triangle rather than a line. Kira's eyes widened at her sister's suggestion. A 3-point connection instead of 2. Understanding dawned on Evan. Is that even possible? Instead of answering with words, Talia stepped forward and took his hand. Then, with her free hand, she reached for her sister. As Kira completed the circuit, joining her hand with Evan's, a surge of energy flowed between them, not the simple warmth of previous contacts, but something far more profound. Images and emotions cascaded through Evan's mind. Talia's fierce protectiveness and hidden vulnerability. Kira's compassionate nature and quiet strength. His own courage and adaptability seen through their eyes. But most powerfully, he felt the twins' bond, not diminished by his presence, but expanded, strengthened, transformed into something new that included him at its center. When they finally broke contact, all three were breathing heavily, overwhelmed by the intensity of the connection. That was ... double quotes. Evan struggled to find words. The future, Kira said simply. If we choose it? Talia nodded, her usual composure softened by wonder. A new kind of bond. With the air cleared between them, they moved with renewed purpose.
Ow.
Slipping into Lumeras through maintenance tunnels that Talia had once explored as a child. The city was under martial law, separatist guards patrolling the streets while citizens were confined to their dwellings. They reached the ruined council chamber as night fell, the twin moons casting dual shadows across the devastation. The temple entrance was buried beneath rubble. But Kira located a secondary access point through what had once been the council's private meditation room. Below, the Temple of Communion was a vast circular chamber, dominated by a crystal spire that rose from floor to ceiling, the ancestral beacon. Dormant for centuries, but still intact. How do we activate it? Evan asked, approaching the spire cautiously. It requires the combined energy of multiple empaths, Talia explained. Traditionally, all 7 council members would join to power it, but we only have 2 empaths, Evan said, looking between the twins. Kira smiled, taking his hand. We have 3. You may not be an empath by birth, but our connection has awakened something in you, a resonance we can build upon. As they positioned themselves around the beacon, the temple doors burst open. Elder Nemes entered, flanked by armed guards, his pale lilac face contorted with rage. Ah! Stop them, he ordered. The human must not be allowed to corrupt our sacred technology. The guards rushed forward, but the twins had already joined hands with Evan, forming a circle around the beacon. As they connected, the earlier sensation returned, energy flowing between them. Amplified now by the crystal structure at their center, the first guard reached them. Weapon raised, but froze as a wave of pure empathic force radiated outward from their joined circle. One by one, the attackers staggered back, overwhelmed by the projected emotions, not fear or anger, but understanding, clarity. The truth that had been hidden for generations, the beacon activated. the crystal spire illuminating from within, sending a pulse of energy upward that burst through the ruined council chamber and into the sky above. Across Lumeris, across all of Navaris, the message spread not in words, but in pure emotional truth that no Navieri could deny or misinterpret. Nemes fell to his knees, his manipulative faculty stripped away, the fear that had driven his extremism exposed for all to feel. "What have you done?" he whispered. "Restored balance," Virella said, entering the chamber with a group of resistance fighters. "The isolation ends today." In the days that followed, Navari society began the difficult process of reconciliation. The separatists, without the foundation of manufactured fear to sustain them, surrendered to the Reformed Council. Plans were made to rejoin the galactic community, cautiously but with purpose. For Evan, Talia, and Kira, the future held its own uncertainties. As they stood on the observation deck of the repaired celestial harmony, Earth visible as a distant blue dot among the stars, Evan felt the weight of the choice before him. "You could return home," Talia said softly, standing at his right. "Your mission would be considered a success-first contact with a new species. Or you could stay," Kira added from his left. "Help build the bridge between our worlds." "Or there's a third option," Evan said, turning to face them both. "You could come with me, be Earth's first Navieri ambassadors." The twins exchanged a glance. But this time Evan could feel the edges of their silent communication not excluded, but included in their bond. "Wherever we go," Talia said. "We go together, all three of us," Kira affirmed, her hand finding his.